Good evening and welcome back to another live episode of Red Tinted Glasses. Callum, when we decided to do some live episodes this week, we knew certainly the second one could be pretty brutal. Didn't think the first one, well, maybe hoped the first one wouldn't be um, so brutal, but things just are not getting better for Barry Robson's Aberdeen just now.
No, and I was very apprehensive, negative, or certain that we were not going to get a result at Tynecastle, which was the case. However, I don't know if I don't have expected us to make such a meal of it as we did in terms of just being awful all round. But this is a long stretch of podcasts. There's lots of them, and I don't know about you, Glenn, but since coming back from my holiday, not enjoying it.
No, I saw Free N Wakali say apathy is almost setting in, which is quite concerning given we're only 5 games into the season. But
Mhm.
here we are. For those that are catching up on this episode on audio and want to depress themselves with the first part of this podcast. I'll do a little bit of a timestamp here. So the first kind of half hour of this podcast, we'll be looking back at the weekend's disappointment as we went down 2-0 to Hearts. The next half hour, it's 35-minute segment. Brian from the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt joined me on Friday afternoon to preview the game coming up on Thursday. And after that roundup, which as I said is 35 minutes long, me and Callum will just kind of review those thoughts as we look to see what we can produce as we get our Europa Conference League group campaign underway. Callum, on the game on Sunday, though, we always look at the team news and see
Mhm.
what happened. No surprises, we went with a back three, but it was a change to the defence. New signing Stefan Gartenman came in to replace Angus MacDonald, and Leighton Clarkson returned as well, replacing Connor Barron. I'm not against seeing Stefan make his Don's debut. It looked like he had a decent game from what I've saw of the game and the highlights as well. But why is Angus MacDonald still not starting? For me, what he did last season, Rubezic didn't have the best game. Do you think Barry's just trying to help build Ruby's confidence here?
Possibly, but I don't think what he's doing is helping. And
Yeah.
I don't think he seems to be getting sort of, I don't know, he kind of seems to be getting exposed a little bit quite often. And I wasn't against Gartenman coming in at all. I thought the fact that maybe Rubezic was going to go into the middle of the back three, then that might offer a bit more protection. He won't be as exposed, for example, when Devlin bombs forward and can't get back in time, which we saw seemingly quite a lot. Then he won't be exposed as the furthest right defender with a speedy winger running at him, like we sort of saw with Ellie Yuan running at him when we played against Hibs. But
Hmm.
it's an odd case, Angus MacDonald, isn't it? Gave him 2 years. We thought he was very. Him and Pollock came in, essentially saved our season. I think you did raise concerns at the time, like will he be the same without Pollock? We don't
Hmm.
know, but it's just very, very odd. Why bother giving him the 2 year deal if these three players, one of which is on loan, are going to play ahead of him? And then that's not including Reece Williams, an even curiouser case. Curiouser and curiouser.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you could add Ordadia to that list as well, and we've not even mentioned a certain Dutchman that you will like to bring up. I'm sure we'll get to him a bit later on in the show as well. But I, you know, to go with actually, no, we'll come to it a bit later on because I'm sick fed up. I don't want to wind myself up too early in the show. We'll come to
Mm.
Barry's excuses a bit later on. But we did kind of start the game all right. McGarry had a shot which tested Xander Clark. We really, once again, similar to the game against Hibs, didn't really have anything kind of clear cut. And, people have been very critical of Duke, but Miovski as well was hugely isolated in the game at the weekend. And both Duke and Miovski are really not benefiting from this current formation. And as Neil McCann said on Sports Scene, we've recruited for this formation and we've got a manager reluctant to change it. We're almost inflicting our own problems on ourselves just now.
Seemingly so, and the problem is that even with this formation, it shouldn't be going as badly as it is. As once again, to give Neil McCann credit, which I don't think either of us thought would ever be fucking happening on this show. As he has sort of highlighted on Sports Scene, it's ridiculous the way we're setting it up, and we're just going for this long ball when that suits neither Duka or Miovski, and when they do somehow manage to control it, they've got nobody up in support of them, and that's the only service they're getting. And the wing backs are, as Kaiser 1903 said, Devlin and McGarry are neither attacking nor defending. No, that was sort of highlighted as well. And then when we are when the ball's with Roos, for example, the lack of options to play out from the back is astounding from either the centre backs, which should be splitting, still leaving Rubic in the middle, or Clarkson, the deepest lying midfielder. For some reason, his job is surely then to come and get the ball and then make things happen and build it from there. That doesn't seem to be working either, and we just resort to hoofing it long. It's awful. And if you look at the Hearts starting 11 compared to ours, we have Duka Miovski isolated as ever in there. Meanwhile, they're starting with Vargas, Oda, Shankland, and Boyce. It was never going to end well, was it?
No, it wasn't. And I said on the preview as well, I picked out Oda as well as a player that would look to run at our defence and cause problems for our defence. And he did just that in the first half. Yes, he gets a huge slice of luck with the deflection, but for me, question marks around the defending from Jimmy McGarry. Why is he backing off so much? And look, he's just had a kid. He doesn't need to be protecting the area that he's just protected. It's done its job for the time being.
Interesting. That's both from a man from experience by the sounds of things. Yeah, I don't understand what the hell he was doing. He sort of made himself smaller in a way with the way he was standing as well, and he was a mile away from Oda. Okay, it's unlucky the way deflection it was, but it actually made it more difficult for Roos, and hence he was beaten rather than if he had simply hadn't bothered. You would think. Absolutely abysmal. Rubic got sucked in. Thankfully, it wasn't him that was the scapegoat for this goal, but that was still a concern. It's abysmal. It's simple stuff that we were doing so well last season, and it's every week. It seems now we're just giving away cheap goals.
But that is
it'll be twice a week now. Fuck.
Yeah, twice a week for the next 2 weeks, and yeah, we've got Rangers a week on Saturday as well, or Sunday, I'm not sure. But that is the biggest concern for me because both goals in this game were extremely soft, extremely poor from an Aberdeen point of view, and we said that on the last show that we built kind of that January, well after January kind of onwards on being hard to beat, hard to break down, and we're just soft as baby shite, to quote you on Messenger earlier. To me, uh, it's so frustrating. And for Barry Robson, he was such a hard player to play against, tough. This team just seems a bit spineless just now. I know Kaiser said, let's not quote Neil McCann, although he did agree with the comments. Going back to some of the points that Neil McCann was highlighting, especially after the second goal, how unwilling so many of that team were to even drop for the ball, show for the ball, look like they wanted to do something, but instead will just absolutely hoof it over our midfield aimlessly at Duka Miovski. The concern for me is we could kind of see towards the back end of last season what Barry Robson wanted to do with that team. High press, look to get in the opposition's faces, cause them problems. I don't see any identity in this Aberdeen team so far this season. And, since being permanent manager, Robson's only won 2 games, and one of those games was a struggle against Sterling Albion. I can't help but feel we were damned if we did and we were damned if we didn't, and Robson's almost going to be the victim of his own success based on what we've seen so far.
Possibly. I hope to God we're both proved wrong. I think there's a chance that we do work it all out and it will end up being okay. But in the meantime, none of it's good enough. And as you say, we are hearing excuses which are starting to. They're not going to wash for much longer if they still do now, shall we say? But you highlighted how how they're almost hiding when Roos had the ball, for example, or one of the other defenders had the ball, midfield was hiding. And then you compare that with Hearts, and in fact, Stephen Naismith highlighted after the game, he commended his players for being brave on the ball, for taking those chances, taking those risks, when he said it could have been easy when they've not had a particularly great spell and there's been an international break. They could have been nervy, but they were brave and it paid off. 2-0 win, clean sheet. And again, we don't win at Tynecastle.
Yeah, I think it was 2017 is the last time we've won there. But of course, we spoke about the fact that we conceded the first goal. March 2022, the last time we came from behind to win a game. 18 months it's been since we conceded the first goal and ended up coming away with 3 points. That's a hugely concerning stat as well, especially looking forward to Thursday. But it's the manner in which we're conceding. And Calum, the second goal also is not a pretty look. Richard Jensen, look, I know Barry Robson pinged the international break as one of his excuses, and I know Richard Jensen had to travel to Kazakhstan, but I don't think we can apportion that to that level of defending.
Abysmal. This was what I described as soft as baby shit. He got his foot in and still lost the ball. I don't know what the hell he's doing. It was not quite the same as Andy Robertson against England. Sorry to remind you that, Glenn. However, they have a chance to deal with it and didn't. And I don't know what he's thinking. If he's in any doubt, just get rid of the thing. And then, of course, we're not helped by the ball being leathered basically off Jamie McGrath's face, and Bruce is already making a move. Abysmal. But once again, Shanklin and Boyce both free as birds in the middle, and it's just not good enough because Jensen got sucked out. Those two are wide open. No one there in the midfield dropping back to help other than Jamie McGrath or to help of use. And it's awful. And I don't think at any point... I'm surprised we came back from 2-0 down to draw twice, or we came back from goal behind to draw twice this season against Hacken and St Mirren. We've given up on even doing that.
But as Kaiser pointed out as well, he said everyone can see this balmy three at the back doesn't work. Robson just can't learn, and it can't be bothered. I think in reply, and I guess it's a talking point for us as well. He said can't or won't, and this is the problem. Is Robson not willing to learn, or does he just not want to learn and is just going to be stubborn? We spoke about Jim Goodwin's stubbornness, which we all know how that turned out. I can't help but feel there's two huge games coming up after Thursday that already, this early in the season, are going to make or break his managerial career at this club.
Possibly. I think so. I mean, I said to you prior also that if we keep on going with this shit, even just playing the way we are, let alone if we keep the system and change it, which if we were to keep the system and change the way we played and actually play football, I'd be happy because we have players that should, in theory, suit that. I couldn't see us coming away with a win from Pittodrie against Ross County, and I couldn't see us going there and winning in the cup. So that's sort of where we are at this point, and it's horrendous. And one of my Hearts supporting pals was at the game, unfortunately. Actually, thankfully, he stayed down that way and didn't bother coming back up to Aberdeen afterwards because it would have been a nightmare. He described Aberdeen's display as some of the worst football he's seen from a team. And keep in mind, he's watched Hearts, and particularly Craig Levine's Hearts, for a lot of this time.
Yeah, exactly. And my Hearts supporting pal as well said it's one of the worst teams he's seen at Tynecastle in a long time. And he said, I don't know why you keep
The table
just...
doesn't lie either.
Well, no, it doesn't. And the fact that we're being kept off the bottom of the table by the fact we scored one more goal than St Johnstone's extremely concerning as well, because fuck me, they are awful to watch. But as Forbes McFarlane, he also speaks about the Ross County game and kind of the pressures that come with that while losing both. But also, as Barry's not getting his tactics right, I thought the whole team were just jogging back to defend. There was a couple of times, watching back the highlights where it does look like Ruby was jogging back, specifically. But our fitness levels towards the end of games, not just the weekend past, but previous this season, are alarmingly bad. especially as you said, we've got that run coming up midweek weekend for the next 2 weeks. Barry Robson wanted us to be one of the fittest teams in the league, was doing double sessions in pre-season. Is that coming back to haunt us already?
I know. It could possibly be. I mean, it certainly looks like it might be. It's a real concern. And professional footballers, I know like Richard Jensen had a lot of travelling. I know it's sort of the easy thing to go to. Professional footballers, they'd be able to play 2 games in a week. We've just come back off an international break. Okay, some of them played, some of them travelled. And in fact, he was complaining about having 6 of them away, but it doesn't look like he's done any fucking work with the rest of them. I'm getting to my wit's end, and yeah, I've signed up to go to Ross County away. So I don't know why. I don't know why, but it is a massive concern, and you do think at some points it's got to we've got to win something, win a game somehow, and whether it's ugly or otherwise, at this point I don't care. I would take anything. It's not great, and when you're going into this run of a busy schedule, you start off by losing at Tynecastle, who in theory we should be up battling with at the right end of the table, probably for third spot, and then you've got to go away to Frankfurt. And then we've got a couple of games against Ross County, potentially winnable, not with the way things are going. And then Ibrox. It's not pretty, is it?
No, it's not. It's not pretty as well. GH in the comments saying he'll be gone by Christmas, so sooner the better. I was saying at work today, he'll be in the locals job by Christmas. He won't even be here by the end of November at this rate. That's honestly the feeling that I've got. We were speaking on Messenger before coming on to chat in the waiting room, and we were speaking about Clarkson. Duke's performances are getting a lot of spotlight, rightly or wrongly, depending which way the coin you want to view it. So is Graham Shinney. But Leighton Clarkson, I want to pick on him not for kind of anything he's doing, but a player that shone towards the back end of last season. We managed to bring in on a good bit of business. Yet this season, we think the best thing to do is punt the ball continuously over the top of his head instead of getting him involved as our playmaker. Now, you said you've no idea why no one's offering short, if that's the idea of playing Clarkson deep. And my argument was, why are we playing Clarkson as our deepest player when surely he's one of the creative players? So, is there almost a need for both Leighton Clarkson and Jamie McGrath in the team? Because certainly against Hibs and Hearts, I thought Connor Barron was probably our best midfielder.
Which probably says a lot, considering we've seen very little of Connor Barron recently, or prior to very recently. But I don't know. I think in games when we're at home and we're going to control the game, or in theory we're going to control the game, like maybe against Hibs or something, then the likes of Clarkson and McGrath both being in there does make sense. To creative midfielders, ball playing midfielders, however you want to describe it. However, at Tynecastle, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's the type of midfield you should be going with. Dare I say, perhaps I could have done with a bit of Dante Polvara's physicality in the middle of the park potentially as well. Congratulations to him on that new 3-year deal, by the way.
Thoughts on it? Sorry, thoughts on that 3-year deal for Dante? Split opinion, of course.
It certainly did split opinion. I think, well, why not? Basically, at this point, I think he certainly looks better than some of the others in that midfield. Livingston, in my head, sticks out where he certainly outperformed both Leighton Clarkson and Graham Shinney. He's 23. There's still got plenty of time to develop, especially given it's this weird American career, which starts a bit later on and you kick on probably a bit later on. I think it's worth taking the gamble on because the benefits could be massive. And I think he does have all the attributes to play in this league and play very well in this league. It just needs that experience. But you'll get that. I don't know, though. That's the problem.
This is the problem. I wholeheartedly agree with the points you've made. I think it's a good bit of business by the club because he's not going to be commanding as big a wage as the likes of Graham Shinney and Leighton Clarkson, I'm sure. But the problem is we won't get the best out of him if he's not playing minutes. So I think if he's still not kind of getting regular minutes between January, punt him on loan to somebody in the Scottish Premiership, unless we're still in a relegation battle come January, and get him some experience of either top flight championship or somewhere in the Scottish Premiership, Ross County, St Johnstone, somewhere that he can go and get minutes and come back to us next season. It's a very low risk signing, so I'm certainly not as negative as a lot of people were to that deal. We're not saying he's going to be starting every game. He's certainly not a Ramadani replacement. I think maybe that was the original plan, but it's evident that that's not going to happen. And neither's Leighton Clarkson, which is obviously the position he's been filling just now. And our midfield looks so disjointed because Shinnie is running around trying to cover the work of two players, and it's just not working for us as well. There was a lot of excuses after the game from Barry Robson. The BK Hacken game still causing us to be tired, which is, I mean, the cheek to even bring that up is an absolute disgrace to any fan that travelled to Tynecastle, in my opinion. But the one that really annoyed me as well was to say that we were playing a new back four back five that didn't really know each other. I genuinely wonder if he thinks some of us are stupid. Most of that back five have played together at least once. The only new player in that back five was Stefan. So that comment doesn't hold any water either. And then to blame the international break having 6 players away, only Richard Jensen and Jamie McGrath, Bojan, that's 3 players for Duke. But most of these guys know the teammates that they're playing with. He said before the international break that the international break would be a good thing for us because we would get on the training ground and be able to work on things. Now we come back from the international break, lose, and it's a bad thing because 6 players were away and we didn't have time to work on things. Make up your mind.
I know. Duncan and Barron were both ways well, however. But still, the ones that were there, they don't look any better. Arguably, maybe even worse, you could say. But that's a very good point from Scott M. Actually, 2 of the excuses were players were tired, 6 away on international duty, so why not pick an 11 with the players that were here for the 2 weeks? Was Daddy Evan on the bench? I don't think so.
No, Daddy
wasn't. Seems mental to me. And I'll come to a bit later on, but a lot of people suggested he should be back in the side. He should get another chance. But it absolutely ridiculous. And I think the fact what he said was the back 5 hadn't met. Some of them hadn't met. Gartenmann's been here for like a week. Maybe Jensen went away when Gartenmann came. I don't know. However,
he said Bojan was the last player back when he did his pre-match press conference, which was on Wednesday, and I think Bojan arrived back on Wednesday, or he was arriving back later that day. So they had a training session on Wednesday to get to know each other, and they would have surely trained at least once more between Wednesday and Saturday.
Probably.
Well, you'd hope
Thursday, Friday.
Yeah. Well, the way we're going just now, they need to be. There was a comment I want to come back to. I was discussing it with Stephen at work today because I think this is true. I think this comment is true. And Kaiser puts in that you'd think Robson doesn't want to play in Europe. And I actually agree with that comment because the way he speaks about Europe in his post-match comments, I feel Europe is a hindrance to Barry. And he knows that this squad doesn't have the quality of depth to cope with the Thursday, Sundays just now, and knows that he's under pressure. Now, somebody did comment earlier at the start of the episode, and I'm sorry I can't find who it is. Oh, here it is. It's from Kev's Wag, who said it's been a tough run of fixtures. It was always going to be tough. Yes, we spoke about on this podcast that we knew the first 2 months were going to be tough, and you've always said, Callum, October should be a saving grace for us with the run of home fixtures. Huge emphasis on should right now. But what do you think to that comment from Kaiser about Barry Robson potentially not wanting to be in Europe?
It's a bit of an odd one because I suppose in his post-match interview he was saying, you play for Aberdeen. This is what you're here for. This is where we want to be. However, I do agree that it is seeming to be a hindrance, and I also do agree with VK. Can't cope domestically either, based off recent evidence. Correct. I don't know. I think it would be more interesting had we had one of the other two teams in this group, and then we would have found out on Thursday where we sort of were, where we're standing. Whereas we won't really learn anything from this game on Thursday against Frankfurt. They're ninth in the Bundesliga. They had a very good run. They won the Europa League, I believe. Yeah, I think they did. Not so long ago, and we won't learn anything from that. And I think they do want to be, and they will have used it to sell it to players. However, I don't think we'll cope with it very well. Equally on the other side of the coin, and
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see how they do balance that. And you mentioned sort of how I've spoke about October. That is providing he gets the results, i.e., against Ross County, to ensure that he is there come October.
Yeah, well, I suppose you mentioned October, whether or not he'll still be in the job come October is a different matter. But as Scott M points out, isn't that the point of having a bigger squad and utilising it? Exactly. Utilising the squad. I'm going to mention him before you get in. Vicente Bissau, and a lot of talk around him. Barry Robson saying he's still got a role to play, sees him having some involvement, doesn't put him in the matchday squad on Saturday. It's honestly, there's so much stuff that is coming out in his press conferences that people are picking up on. Look, I know football fans are fickle. If by some miracle we come away on Thursday with a point and we win the next two games, all this stuff will be forgotten about. Me and you'll probably turn around to say we're going to finish third and we'll be winning the League Cup. Let's
possibly
honest. Exactly. Football is a fickle business, but it is also a results business. And right now, results are not good enough, and there is no sign of improvement. And fans have invested in their numbers this season because Alan Burrows and Cormac will shout from the rooftop at our season ticket sales. But the renewals for next season, based on what we're getting just now, that could be a tough sell.
Well, we did think that around even February, sort of last season, I suppose. All I want to talk about is Vicente Bissau, because if he's got a role to play, I think it's just taking all the new lads to his favourite sticky toffee pudding spot. Because what's the point? What's the point? Why did we not? There was talk of him potentially going out on loan. Well, that was just rumours from the paper. I don't know. I don't understand why he's here if he's not going to be involved. Because at his age, he needs to be playing. He needs to be playing regular football. And for him personally as a player to develop. If it's not going to be here, unfortunately, he shouldn't be here. Instead, he's not included on. Can't be included on Thursday because he's not in the Europa League squad. If he doesn't feature at all in either of the Ross County games, then I seriously worry, because they can't keep banging on that he has a role to play if he's not going to feature in either of those games when we've been doing as bad as we have been. And I don't know if perhaps maybe he would fit as one of the midfielder that's closest to Duke and Miovski, if he can help bridge that gap. Because right now, whatever it is, I think it's McGrath doing it. If I don't even know if there's anyone doing it, I think there's just Clarkson sitting deep, and then there's two plonked in front of them, still 20 yards away from the forwards.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's stressing me out.
See on the European squad and his lack of inclusion, given Shaden Morris is out for 10 weeks. Now, whether that is from the point of the Hibs game or from when Robson announced it, that would mean he comes back into the fray 1-2 weeks shy of Helsinki away. So he'll miss 4 of our 6 group stage games. Absolutely baffling that we have not made a change. And coming back from a hamstring injury, going to then play in Helsinki, which I believe is a plastic pitch, is not something he's likely to do. So we're basically a player down. I mean, I could have told you that before, even if Shaden Morris was fully fit.
Yay.
One final thing before we move on. John Smith commented, hiring rookie managers is the best idea we've ever had. I said it already. And Can't Be Bothered says, I wonder if the Football Monitoring Board is monitoring all of this. Evening, Dave and Alan, if you are monitoring this. I'm sure you can see all the comments. Was Barry Robson a victim of his own success before the end of the season? Because, again, Paul Cosgrove saying, is it a case Robson got the job because there was no real interest from a decent coach manager? Well, I fucking hope that wasn't the case. But I just think the fact that Robson achieved the goals that were set out by the board, if the board didn't appoint Barry Robson, and look, we would have been the same, there would have been disappointment in amongst our support. Because if we'd gone and appointed an experienced manager and they'd had the start that Barry's had to this season, everyone would say, what were we doing? We should have just left Barry to it. But now that Barry's had this start, everyone's saying, oh, we should have gone and got an experienced manager. This is what happens when you have a rookie manager in charge. What did you expect? The club really were damned if they did and damned if they didn't. And unfortunately, I really do hope it does turn around. It's going the wrong way just now.
I hope it turns around too. Because believe it or not, we don't enjoy being this negative. However, this is just what we've been forced to do as a result of the shambles that's going on the pitch wherever the Reds play or Northern Lights play or Whites play. I mean, it seems to be fucking kit shambles. Never mind. I think he is a victim of his own success. We would have, as you say, we had to give him the job. We basically made it impossible for us to not give him the job. However, this isn't good enough, and he's probably put more pressure on himself because we've made all this investment. We finished third last season. We've spent God knows how much, probably close to 2 million. Okay, we've taken in a lot as well. We're 11th in the league, and that's got to improve, and it's as simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It has to improve, and it has to improve. I was going to say starting ASAP, but I'll take it from Sunday. A decent performance on Thursday to give me encouragement that there's signs of improvement. But I mean, I got a new flag for going to Frankfurt as well. I mentioned that on the last episode, so it looks pretty nice. Inspired by No Blaha as well, so that'll be hanging proudly from the away end unless it gets stolen. It's upside down in the away end, home end. Then you know it's been a bad few days for me. But Calum, I caught up with Brian from the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt, so let's hear what he had to say ahead of the game on Thursday night.
Let's.
Brian, welcome to Red Tinted Glasses. I'm really delighted that you've given up your Friday morning, as it is in Kansas, to join us on the podcast, and not extend a thanks just to you, but I suppose we should also extend a thanks to Eintracht Frankfurt and Kevin Trapp for what you did a couple of years ago in Seville and saved Scottish football from years of pain having to listen to Rangers about their success in Europe.
Well, you know what? More than happy to do that. If anyone saw the celebrations that then transpired in Frankfurt, where you had basically fans line up from the airport all the way past the stadium. Yes, the airport's closer to the stadium than the city center, go figure. So you'll actually hear, for anyone who travels, you'll actually hear the planes fly overhead, which is it's kind of cool, a little element that can be heard, if the crowd is having a quiet moment. But yeah, the entire streets were lined with fans. You had all these fans show up in the old city center that has been rebuilt, and it was a wild, decadent party that if I didn't have a little one on the way, I would have flown out there without even, shred of thinking, should I make this flight and spend, these hundreds, thousands of dollars, as you can tell, I'm American, so I'm using dollar figure, or pounds or euros to make the flight out to Frankfurt for the party? Well, when you got a little Wayne on the way, sometimes you have to make more adult decisions. So the little kid in me was not able to be there, but I live streamed it from the Eintracht Frankfurt YouTube channel, which is still available for any Aberdeen fan who wants to see what it's like to lift a European trophy. I know that you guys haven't done it for a good 40-ish years, but trust me, it's a wonderful feeling. And to have been able to then be told by Celtic fans, oh, good on you for preventing the Rangers from winning the trophy. And I'm like, how long would you have heard, Rangers bragging about this trophy? Forever. And I'm like, fair enough. You're welcome.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just the rest of Scottish football extended their thanks in that.
You
Obviously,
enjoyed the coefficient points from them getting to the final. You just made sure we just took care of you not having to hear about their gloating.
exactly. Obviously, this competition though for Frankfurt is the Europa Conference League. What is the expectation for Frankfurt going into this group stage campaign? Obviously, pot one, highest seeds in the group as well. Is there very much an expectation amongst Eintracht Frankfurt fans that they'll win every game, or because the start of the season so far in the Bundesliga has maybe been a bit rocky? I think I read on the Eintracht Frankfurt website, 1 win, 2 draws so far. Obviously, we're recording this ahead of the weekend's fixture against Bochum. So, is there a air of confidence in the Frankfurt fans?
There's the Frankfurt fans. We travel in numbers, so we had a huge following go out to Seville. If people did not see in the lead up to that run to the Europa League title, we actually brought 30,000 Frankfurt fans descended on the Camp Nou and got into the stadium. I mean, you're talking about enough Eintracht Frankfurt fans to, if we really wanted to move this match to Hampton, it'd help you guys in filling it.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. It would be a wonderful, boisterous atmosphere where the Eintracht fans will, drink the city dry. There were only a handful of people who made it out to Bulgaria for that match. Now, with very little time for kind of long-term planning, it kind of makes things a lot difficult. So, if you don't got the cash on hand or the holiday time, it can be really hard to travel. But when the Frankfurt fans do have heads up, when you do have the group stage kind of action to plan out your travel specifications, they will sell out all the allocation. They'll ask for more, and the city center the restaurateurs will be happy. Every single shop will be happy because all you have to do is present a German with a beer and a pretzel, and we'll eat and drink out of house and home, so that at the end of the day you can say, you know what, the city benefited from the Eintracht fans coming. And yes, we are expecting that we're going to come through this as group stage winners. PAOK Thessaloniki, who is a very experienced team to the European adventures, does provide an interesting match in match day 2. And the visit to Greece, I think, will probably dictate who will probably end up being the group stage winner. We do have some little bit of experience with playing a Greek side. That title-winning team did play a fellow Greek team in that group stage, and we had to go through Antwerp in addition to Fenerbahce from the Turkish league. So the Eintracht fan is very optimistic about this campaign, looking at it from the standpoint of you start off with a home match versus Aberdeen. You got to basically what is perceived to be on paper as the toughest away fixture by going to Thessaloniki in Greece, northern Greece, in case people had not Google mapped that yet. Other map viewing services are available, but and then a trip to Helsinki where beer is 20 euros per, which blows my mind. Trust me on that. That's absurd. Anyways, but Eintracht fans are looking at this as very much first place. Second place isn't horrible, but it does mean that you're having to restart the European campaign in the spring, in February, not March, which is, I think, Eintracht finishing it as group winners in a 21-22 campaign. That was a key part of us winning the competition. Was we didn't have to get the Champions League drop-ins. And in this case, this will be Europa League third place teams that would then drop into the Europa Conference League. And yeah, I mean, I would think that wouldn't be for a team like Eintracht maybe really the toughest of tests. You're looking at the competition from who's already qualified. So the English are in there with that team from Birmingham who knocked out, I think, one of the Edinburgh teams.
Yeah.
Kind of struggling on that. But the Eintracht fans are looking at the knockout phase as hey, how far can we go? Are we going to stop at the quarterfinals, draw depending? Or are we going to think to ourselves, no, we're making the semifinals and beyond because we see a Fiorentina, we see Aston Villa. We think to ourselves, we can handle that. We just got to get there first. Yeah. And it all starts with welcoming the Aberdonians to wonderful Frankfurt at the Forest Stadium, the Waldstadion as it's known as colloquially, and Deutsche Bank Park, if you like to have the commercialized name put out there. We're very excited to welcome anyone dressed in red because we are red, black, and white for our colors. And we're very welcoming people and excited to have Aberdeen visit our stadium. We just hope that you sell out your allocation.
Yeah, well, I think we're actually quite close to doing so. Obviously,
the lower stand, I will say of the allocation, the lower tier portion of the allocation is actually all terraced. So if you miss that old school feel to the away matches or the old standing areas at Potodri, I think if I got that pronunciation right, I think you're gonna love sitting in the lower end. If you get stuck in the higher end, hey, it's still a wonderful view. The National Football League is coming to Frankfurt with the reigning Super Bowl champions, my hometown team. The Kansas City Chiefs are coming there. I'm really, with a kid, it's kind of hard to be able to allocate for those kind of tickets when those are going for like 500 euros a pop. Try to swallow that in addition to your flights. It's a stadium that any traveling Aberdeen fan will thoroughly enjoy. Modern amenities out the wazoo, very large standing area for the home fans. If you Scotland, who's very close to qualifying for this coming summer's Euros, happen to play the match in Frankfurt, you will thoroughly enjoy the Waldstadion either way that you may take it in.
Yeah, I'm glad you said there's plenty of amenities because we know how much Rangers fans complained about amenities after the Europa League final a couple of years ago as well. And my ticket is for the terracing section, the lower tier. So I'm really excited to experience that and just experience the German fan culture. I was lucky enough to be in Munich back in 2008. That would have been when we played Munich in the Allianz. Unfortunately, yeah, exactly. But I was only 16 then, so now that a few years older, properly get to experience the German fan culture. But interesting, kind of hearing about the confidence levels from Frankfurt fans. As you said to me as well before we actually did this recording, no German teams actually qualified from the group phase of the Conference League as well. So maybe we can hold on to that as a bit of confidence from an Aberdeen standpoint, because we really need to clutch at all the straws that we can. Frankfurt did sell one of their key players in the summer.
Recyclable straws, of course. Recyclable straws.
Yeah,
we had to be conscious of the environment. Everybody.
Yeah. Colomwani went to PSG in the summer for 95 million. A big loss for Eintracht, but I'm sure you guys have plenty of other threats waiting in the wings to cause Aberdeen problems, potentially in the form of summer signings Omar Marmoush and Jessic Ngakam. I probably murdered that pronunciation.
Oh, you're doing good. You're doing good.
What can Aberdeen expect in terms of threats from the Frankfurt forward line in midfield?
To use the Scottish slang, I kind of see how the Aberdeen defense will be able to deal with Marmoush. So he is a player that likes to play, doesn't do well with an offsides trap, but if he likes to run into space, and with Randall Colomwani, you had a target man who could then easily play with his back to goal, linking in a whole bunch of different players. Now with Ngan, hey, 95 million, you know what? That's a tidy sum to put in your back pocket. Covers all the transfers that we've made this season, and still leaves plenty in the bank for basically anything that we could possibly want. Or the club itself could just take a little bit of that and hand it over to the Frauen team, who's actually just had the draw for the UEFA Women's Champions League and are looking really primed with having a Czech opposition to be able to progress to the group phase. Here's hoping that the Scottish side, Glasgow City, will be joining Eintracht in that competition. But back to the Eintracht men itself. So Marmoush is with his tendency to play offsides, he will kind of make the defense. He will kind of lure the defense up to try and get him in that trap. But with Mario Götze, a wonderful player that he is, despite his age, he's on the other side of 30. But hey, that doesn't mean that you're not a wily old fox. The man has got the vision to be able to link players from the wings, put them back through the middle, and pop one right over the defense, over the top. This team is all primed with Marmoush to be able to get everyone involved in the match, so Eintracht can attack you from all angles. And I'm very confident in the fact that Ngannou, who comes in during the second half, he can really will run at you with pace, with strength. He's not around a Colomwani. I think that it's really hard to create, that to replicate that French leading striker. We're talking about a national team that's just loaded with talent for bear. It's really hard to replace that sort of a player. But with the tools that Eintracht does have, we're looking at the season as in the fall as an opportunity to be able to fight on all fronts. And there's a very good amount of depth from the attacking side. Was signed. You got I'm blanking on our Algerian attacking midfielder that we signed on the 30th. It'll come to me.
Is that the guy Elias Shaqiri from Cologne?
Shaqiri. So he no. Shaqiri as a holding midfielder actually is probably one of the biggest signings that the Eintracht has. But from the attack side, the Eintracht has got many weapons to go for the left, right. Buta is a wing back who plays out on the right. He's a really good, wily player. One of the players who was left off the roster in Philip Max, it does seem to be that we're looking at him as you're strictly sticking to a Bundesliga start to be able to allow for more squad rotation as competition goes on, which the Eintracht does. With the amount of monies we've got from our European adventures the last few seasons, we have a decent sort of depth, and I'm looking forward to how the Eintracht's able to go from playing Bochum to playing Aberdeen midweek, and then going to play SC Freiburg, a team who finished in 6th place just last season and was quarterfinalist, I believe, in the Europa League last campaign as well, and playing in that again. It's very curious to see how Eintracht's going to be handling the 2 matches per week kind of schedule that we have, and we also still have the cup coming up. That will be in October. It's an interesting time for Eintracht, and it's one that there's a lot of questions, but there's a lot of optimism.
Yeah, and I think the point that you make there about how kind of Eintracht handled the 2 games in a short space of time, it's the same questions that we've got here in Aberdeen about how we handle it. Both sides this weekend facing on the road games. Aberdeen with a tricky trip to Tynecastle. You guys face Bochum away in the 5:30 kickoff UK time. So maybe folk, and I'm sure Barry Robson will have that on the TV for the guys coming back up the road, so we can get a bit of insight into that game. But certainly hearing you speak about all these different players, it seems this Frankfurt side is stacked with quality. Of course, as you mentioned, Philip Max isn't being picked for the Conference League squad. That's because you're gone with Niels Nkonku, who signed from Saint Etienne, and he scored the equaliser in the last game against Cologne as well. I just want to come back to that midfield, because Mario Goetze says you're absolutely right. A player, despite being the wrong side of 30, even though I guess I am the wrong side of 30 as well, if that's the way you want to look at it. It is a player who obviously scored the World Cup winning goal for Germany back in the day, a player that I've seen live at Hampden as well for the national team. And that midfield for Frankfurt just seems stacked with quality individuals. But has there been a struggle this season with the fact there's been, a few new signings into that midfield as well?
It's been a little bit of an adjustment. So Shaqiri, to me, is the kind of the holding midfielder that everyone dreams of. If you're, a team who's wanting to build a winner, so considered to be the best player that FC Köln had last campaign, and we got him on a free. It was hilarious because, for a little backstory, I'm watching the match in the spring in the same bar that the local Celtic fans are in, and they're celebrating. I think they have beaten hard. So you mentioned that you guys are going to be facing, and they're like, "Oh, it's like, who's this team clone?" I'm like, well, if you like the sectarianism things of life, they're right up your guys' alley being Catholic. But this player who just scored his second goal against us, we've actually already got a contract offer on the table to sign him on a free. And they're like, well, that's just mean. And I'm like, no, it's what Bayern's been doing for decades. Like we're just taking advantage of the same thing that everyone else is doing. And Dortmund has done it as well, though those guys are, well, both of those sides can be really annoying. I'm not getting into the weeds on that. But Shaqiri, I think, is the probably a linchpin. Him, Götze, is kind of like the attacker and the defender who are able to kind of link really everyone all together. And from a defensive standpoint, you got a back three that Shaqiri is able to provide coverage for. He's got an engine that does not quit. He's got scoring boots. He's got an eye for a pass. He's a dangerous soul who would pick apart. If the Tunisian national team faced off against Scotland, you guys would look at him as, you guys would immediately look at him and think, oh, he's going to be ripping us to pieces. He's going to, when we have our attackers go right on in, he's that defensive shield that everyone needs, who also has an eye for the attack. And he's a dangerous individual, and he provides our defense, which is so our defensive three that we mainly go from the front center defense, which is kind of a holdover from the last coach. Actually, the last two coaches of mine. It's kind of crazy how long we've been running with a defensive three pairing with wingbacks to either side. Two of the center defenders that we've been Pacho, who we got from Antwerp, Ecuador, who we got from Antwerp, who had a pretty good showing. For Ecuador over the international break, and we got Tuta, kind of the long-standing player who's been with us. I think he's entering his fourth season with the Eintracht right now, and you got Koch, who is on loan from Leeds, recently relegated from the Premier League. We've got these three guys seem to be our defense going forward, and Shaqiri provides the perfect cover so that they can kind of ease their way into things. Now, a 1-1 draw against Cologne. Oh my God! The first half, I wanted to throw my beer through the TV, but I really didn't want to pay close to $1,000 for a new TV. So I kept my beer, in hand. It just suddenly vanished because I was drinking it so fast because I was nervous. I was frustrated with the way that the Eintracht was performing. Our lone victory so far was in our local rival, Darmstadt, the newly promoted side. We looked very overconfident in that and allowed Darmstadt to have a few moments to endanger Kevin Trapp in goal, but we still held firm in the way that we performed, and yeah, the Eintracht right now, we're just coming up into that part of the season where we're playing multiple games a week. The focus on qualifying for the group stage was something that we were worried about. How conceding a late goal in Bulgaria was a real true frustration, as I was having to watch an illegal stream because there was no legal broadcasting option to take on. But with the response that Eintracht did have for the second leg against Sofia, the Bulgarian side, it was one that showed the determination of players who are seasoned in terms of playing in Europe, for those who are from the previous couple of seasons, and a youthful exuberance and a desire to prove your new side that you are a valuable asset, which our new players are proving. Is just bringing it all together takes time, takes patience, and when you are what they call a Traditionsverein, so a traditional team in Germany, such as Eintracht is, and other teams you could throw out there are like obviously Dortmund, Schalke, Hamburg, and the likes. You have demands from a hungry fan base who they want all the glory. And yes, we've had some at Frankfurt, but we can be impatient as well. So if Aberdeen is looking to keep things nice and tidy for the first half, you'll get some angry Frankfurt fans who are starting to get a little impatient. But this is a team that's still in the process of building, and with a new coach who is in his first major job in a major league. No offense to his previous gig in the Luxembourg top flight, but it's still a wait and see approach that the Eintracht fans have, and we demand the best. We demand passion. We demand, you leaving it all on the pitch, and sometimes the results just don't happen.
Yeah, I think a few interesting points from that. You spoke about the Darmstadt game, and I think I think going on that point about offering up opportunities, if opportunities come our way on Thursday night, we've got to be clinical and take them. Also, kind of hearing your points about being a team in transition. I think very much people can probably agree we're still kind of at that stage this season with players getting to know each other. It was certainly something that Leighton Clarkson picked up in his match press conference against Hearts before the weekend, saying we've had players coming in from different countries, settling into a different city, settling into a different style of play. So we're still as a team trying to get used to each other, and I just hope the way you speak about Frankfurt, you're still a couple of games away from everything clicking in place and it doesn't get taken out on us fully. I noticed though that the Frankfurt style of play is very much similar to Aberdeen in the sense of a back three, which is what we've been going with. Do Frankfurt like to press high up the pitch, and is that a certain style that's been adapted this season?
So you'll see if you watch a lot of the Bundesliga, a lot of the teams, the gegenpressing style that seemed to just catch wind when Dortmund had their two Bundesliga titles, one of which was complemented by the German Cup, and then they made the 2013 Champions League final under Jurgen Klopp, who has taken put that to use in Liverpool and has allowed those guys to be successful. So that style, the gegenpressing style, the high press, the constant trying to get the quick transition times down, that's something that Eintracht has, and the Bundesliga as a whole, Eintracht implements, but under Dino Topmöller, who, interesting enough, was a player for the Eintracht way back when we were an elevator team, as they say in German. I'm gonna butcher that phrase that they have for it, but a yo-yo club, sort of like Hamilton Academical or Livingston, or take any of the Edinburgh clubs, which is probably a real kick in the teeth for traditionalists in Scotland, or though maybe you just enjoy taking the piss out of those guys when they have to go through those sort of stuff. But Dino Topmöller's father was the previous coach of the Eintracht. He was the previous player of the Eintracht, so he's familiar with the whole setup. what he likes to do is play out of the back. That's not something that Oliver Glasner was really someone who liked to kind of implement with his defense. So Kevin Trapp, who is more of a traditional netminder, kind of like a more Oliver Kahn type than Manuel Neuer type, but he's had to very much develop himself in terms of his passing capabilities because Dino wants to play out of the back. Okay, you know what? Got to try something different. Can't be the same old every season and expect to have different results. I think very famous philosopher said it's insanity to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So Eintracht is more in a heavy pressing right now, trying to take the ball away from its opposition in quick succession. And the statistics really back it up in that in the early parts of the match, Eintracht is the most deadly. We just are not as clinical as we would like to be in terms of putting the ball in the back of the net. But I will say this much: if Aberdeen comes in with a, oh my gosh, look at this big stadium, look at these big shiny lights. This is different than the rain and the cold and the wind that we have at home. What the heck are we expecting? And then you hear the noise that is created at the Waldstadion, which I would say you would find something louder. You might need to go to one of the Old Firm matches, maybe, to be able to find something as equally as loud. But, the noise is kept all match long, win or lose. Even when we're getting absolutely trounced, the Waldstadion is nice and loud, something for everyone to enjoy. It really pushes the team on, and I really believe that with the way that Dino Topmolo is currently trying to employ his team, playing out of the back, utilizing the wings, utilizing the center channels with Mario Götze, finding that perfect then final pass to unlock team's defense. You see it being implemented. It's just that final little shred of clinical class, which really does define a team from being a European qualifier to a title challenger. Eintracht is not there yet, but doesn't mean that we won't be there.
Yeah, no, totally. And I guess it's a very good point about, I don't want us to be kind of caught rabbits in the headlights when we come out on Thursday evening, because there is obviously that fear, as you say, the intimidating atmosphere that I'm sure is going to be created, and all these big names that you're lining up against. But I guess, is there any way, or in your mind, how could Aberdeen go about beating Frankfurt? Is there any weaknesses in this Frankfurt side?
Yes, there is. So how can you beat Frankfurt? One, shut down the strikers by if you got a Billy Bremner type, utilize him. Utilize him to, I'm not saying like he needs to be like Vinnie Jones grabbing Paul Gascoigne by the testicles or anything. But if you can start winding up the Eintracht strikers and the Eintracht wingers, suddenly they get pissed off. It's not something that you see in the German game. It will totally throw them off their game. And that means that you can buy yourself some time, get one or two good attacking runs in. Maybe you get a penalty call that goes in your favor. Remember, VAR is to be utilized. I don't know if it's utilized in the Scottish league on a match. Oh, good. Opportunities are there for Aberdeen to get something. The opportunities are there for the Aberdeen fans to have a whale of a time. I would say you'd have a whale of a time, win, lose, draw, because one, the stadium beer is way cheaper than in the UK by a large margin. Two,
we don't even get beer in Scotland in the stadium.
Well, guess what? We got beer available before the match, during the match, after the match, and some folks will just hang out for up to an hour after grabbing an extra beer because you got a cup deposit you can bring back that takes down the price of the beer. The beer is cheap. It's not horrible that you just sort of like, wow, I think I'd rather drink XYZ than that sort of beverage that they're serving at the concession stand. And you know what? You come to the Waldstadion, you take the urban transport to get to the stadium, you walk a couple minutes through the forest, you will smell urine because, hey, some people have been loading up before the match. If you have to go, there's plenty of trees. And you know what? And if
That was the thoughts of Brian from the Hey Eintracht Frankfurt podcast, looking ahead to the game on Thursday. So thank you very much to Brian for his time on Friday morning. I'm sure some of you enjoyed that. Look, it's not easy putting yourself in front of a camera. So some people do speak a bit more than, when they're nervous. But it was a good insight, Callum, and it's given us kind of some thoughts into the game. He mentions one of their holding midfielders, and I couldn't help when listening to him speak about Shaqiri. It just reminded me of how much I miss Ramadani. But
I thought you were going to say it reminded you of Shakira.
No. But kind of hearing about the midfield, I just wonder, we spoke about Connor Barron earlier, and I saw a few people commenting on it whilst that video was playing. Does Connor Barron come into contention? Because by all accounts, when he came up against the Spain under-21s away on international duty, he more than held his own in that game. I did pose the question, do we need both Clarkson and McGrath? Do you see a possible start for Connor here on Thursday night?
Possibly. I think he would maybe bring, despite his slight stature, a bit more steeliness to the midfield. You could perhaps see him start instead of McGrath. You would probably think they'll keep in Clarkson just for... we know he is capable of producing a moment of magic, of picking a pass that no one else can, certainly in our team. So I would think if it was going to be in, it was going to be for McGrath. And I think we could do with that sort of a little bit of bite. He's not afraid to throw himself in every now and then. And for his size, he is a little bit, he's got a little bit about him. He's a little bit stocky and he can play as well. So it's maybe the best of both worlds between sort of him and, I say him and Polvara, despite the size difference. And I suppose we've not seen that from Polvara, I guess, as well. So I would not be adverse to seeing Connor Barron playing. And I think he's got to take confidence from his recent performances, even though results haven't been great, would you say?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, from a personal point of view, he'll be, encouraged by his own displays, as you say. And I think right now we need players in that team with a bit of confidence, because I think there are players certainly lacking that. One thing Brian did point out was the fact that they're kind of a new team, kind of new manager as well, getting to know each other. 3 draws on the bounce in the Bundesliga. I watched the game against Bochum at the weekend. I'm not gonna lie, they were absolutely frightening on the counter attack. Ebembe looked like he will cause Ruby a lot of problems. He scored Frankfurt's goal. I mean, it was the world's softest penalty that they conceded, as well a shirt pull from Marmouche. But Bochum caused Frankfurt all sorts of problems by hassling and harrying the Frankfurt players. Again, kind of something Brian kind of touched on the fact, if you kind of get in their faces, they don't like it. Mario Götze in particular really didn't like it. So I do look forward to that Shinnie versus Götze battle in midfield. But as someone pointed out in reply, Ian Taylor, I think his name is, when I said that was, I don't think we've hassled and harried anyone all season. So we need to learn to do that first and foremost.
Yeah, now would be a good time to start, I suppose. Sort of jump in at the deep end, I would guess. You mentioned Götze versus Shinnie there. That is a potentially terrifying battle. Manuel Götze in front of anyone. I think, as was sort of referenced to, wrong side of 30, his legs maybe not quite what they once were, but in terms of technical ability, my God, the boy's got it. He scored the World Cup final, for goodness sake. That's what we're coming up against here.
The other thing he mentioned as well, and I noticed it on Saturday, their willingness to play out from the back. Now, I wonder how much this will play into that high press and that transition that Barry likes to come away with. Or do you think we might see a bit of a conservative approach on Thursday, given kind of the fragility around our squad right now?
It's tough because you mentioned that they didn't like it when players got up in their face. Brian sort of alluded to it as well. Yet, if we do it wrong and there's even a slight gap, they are going to be able to play through us
Yeah.
easily. So it is a tough call between going with a high press and trying to make it difficult for them, or being very structured, being very disciplined, and essentially hoping that we can nick in at some point and break on them. I think it's got to be keeping it tight, as Brian mentioned. Fans can get a little bit frustrated if things aren't going their way. For example, if 20 minutes go by and they've not scored against us Diddies, then perhaps their crowd will start to turn. Whether they'll be able to use that against them, I would doubt. However, we've got to give ourselves our best chance here and make things difficult for them, because we could get ripped apart. It could be double figures if we are not on our game defensively.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've really got to be on it. We can't have any lapses in concentration. We do have to be clinical when any opportunities come up. And also, please give some decent service to Duka Miovski as well, if that's the two that we go up with up top as well. But, I mean, regardless of what we get served up on the pitch on Thursday night, I'm very much looking forward to the trip. I'm sure it'll be a good couple of days away. If anyone's on the 9 o'clock flight to Amsterdam in the morning, I'll see you then. And I'll see the rest of you. I might not be in as good a condition as I am now on Friday when we look back at the action from Thursday night and take a look ahead to what already feels like a massive league game against Ross County, doesn't it, Callum?
It absolutely does. Every game feels like a massive game at this stage, Glenn. But I wish you all the best in Germany. I hope you do thoroughly enjoy yourself off the park, because I don't think what we're going to get served up on it is going to be much use. But we've got to dream, I suppose. And once you're 10 German lagers deep, I'm sure you will.
Yeah, I will. And for those that are going to Frankfurt as well, keep an eye out on our socials as well, because we're working on something with Beth Wallace, of course, who did the semi-final playlist for us, and trying to get a gig for her at O'Reilly's Irish Bar for the day of the game as well. And also stay tuned to her socials as well, because she's been working on something special regarding the European song. So if you don't follow her already, get involved with that. I'm sure that'll help build up the excitement to the game on Thursday night. But thank you very much to everyone that's tuned into this episode, whether it be here live on YouTube. If you have done, remember to hit that like and subscribe button. And if you've been in audio, we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.